You don't need to add makeup to this landscape. We've reached the southernmost end of the Macaronesia. Volcanic activity has created a magical place that changes at every step. An archipelago where it's always springtime. This is Papagayo Point, the last beach of a succession of beaches in the south of Lanzarote Island.
A lonely cove during the sunrise seems like a good starting point to explore Lanzarote. But I have the feeling that very soon we will discover that Canary Islands are much more than a set of beautiful beaches.
In 2019, the readers of Condé Nast Traveler magazine chose Papagayo beaches as the best in Spain. Maybe it's for its wild location. Perhaps it's the color of its waters, the fine sand, or the constantly warm weather. You can go through all the cliches that come to mind, but nothing compares to the sensation of being here, in this moment, right now. Thinking about nothing at all. Chapter 3, Fortunate Islands. We have rented 2 vehicles to travel the easternmost island of the archipelago. Here, one has the feeling of driving through Africa. In fact, the coast of Morocco is only 130 kilometers away. All throughout the island, we see the print of a man who has managed to tame the character of this land. It's César Manrique, a local architect and sculptor. His imagination is a tribute to the land of his birth. Jameos del Agua is the result of the action of lava and this artist's hand. In the Aboriginal Guanche language, the word jameo refers to a hole created by the collapse of a volcanic tunnel. But here, it forms a bucolic space that has been sublimated by Manrique. And this space is alive. This lagoon is home to the only species of blind crabs. They cannot be found anywhere else in the world, and thus, it's an endangered species. Jameos del Agua is very close to the Los Verdes cave. Both caverns resulted from the eruption of the Corona volcano. There are more than 6 kilometers of galleries from the crater to the sea. In fact, the final stretch goes on for another 1,600 meters underwater. It is the Tunnel of Atlantis, the longest volcanic submarine lava tube on the planet. After half an hour of going through passageways and stone cathedrals, the cave surprises us once again.
Everything is ready in this natural auditorium. We are 150 feet under the ground, and here the acoustic is perfect. Once again, in this island, the hand of the man and nature unites to create magic.
An empty auditorium in an empty cave, where bewilderment reigns. And there's a place that resembles limbo. Here, space is amplified. It confuses you. As in a fantasy, it's difficult to know what's real and what's not. Just a little further on, we find another example of how Lanzarote's inhabitants have seized their territory. Hundreds of stone walls built by hand protect the vineyards of Lecheria. We are going into a region that has been mixing volcanic ashes and the winds from the Sahara. In one of the most arid areas of Spain, wine is produced. Since 1993, Lanzarote's wine has a designation of origin, and its origin is incredible.
¿Cómo es posible que en un terreno árido, volcánico, se pueda cultivar vino, y buen vino además?
La ventaja que tiene este terreno es que al tener ese espesor de picón, de arena volcánica, lo que hace es absorber el rocío y el sereno de la noche y la poca lluvia que cae aquí en Lanzarote, y lo que hace es dosificárselo a la parra cuando lo necesita en sí, en brotación normalmente.
Así que de algún modo estas bodegas deben estar agradecidas al caos que produjo la explosión de aquellos volcanes.
Sí, sí, no, la verdad que se corrió mucho, pero es de agradecer este terreno, porque al fin y al cabo lo que nos da este terreno es esta plantación y le da mucha peculiaridad a nuestros vinos.
Venga, pues vamos a la mejor parte, que es la cata que nos has preparado.
El tinto es muy diferente a cualquier otro tinto que puedas probar de otro lugar del mundo. La tierra, el terreno es totalmente diferente. Estamos hablando de ceniza volcánica.
Claro.
Esos ahumados, ese tabaco lo vas a tener siempre.
Pero es verdad que se detecta muy bien ese sabor, un poco de ceniza, de hoguera, ¿no?
Exacto, sí. Es que vamos, es el terreno y no hay vuelta de hoja, ¿no? Es la diferencia nuestra.
Bueno, Javier, pues enhorabuena porque habéis conseguido destilar este paisaje en una copa de vino, ¿eh?
Muchísimas gracias. Salud.
At dusk, we notice that on this island, there is no truce for aesthetics. Any corner of Lanzarote could be framed. Also, under the surface.
Sebas, hemos estado recorriendo Lanzarote y hemos visto que la mano del hombre y la naturaleza aquí conviven muy bien en armonía. Pero también es posible contemplar el arte bajo el agua.
Bueno, Dani, aquí te vas a llevar una sorpresa enorme porque justamente en el centenario de Manrique es de los pocos sitios que, a pesar del desarrollo turístico que hay, la mano del hombre y la mano de la naturaleza van y se juntan y forman nada más que una sola cosa, ¿no? Y esto lo ves en toda la isla y hoy espero que te lleves una gran sorpresa con lo que nos vamos a encontrar debajo del agua.
Pues cuando suba te lo digo.
You have to descend 15 meters to contemplate one of the most amazing art centers in the world. We are at the Atlantic Museum. Lanzarote is a magnet for artists and geniuses, but the talent of the British sculptor Jason de Caires Taylor can only be seen at the bottom of the sea. There are 300 concrete statues with a neutral pH, which is environmentally friendly. This project was conceived to favor the creation of coral reefs. Every work intends, additionally, to sensitize the visitor. This is the memorial for the immigrants that have been abandoned to their fate. There's also a critique about the selfie era, which makes us look only at ourselves. Some figures represent real inhabitants of the island in natural size. The work concludes with a human whirlpool, death forming a grim circle, whose end is precisely to generate life at the bottom of the sea. Well, we've literally ran out of air, but the museum will be here for those who want to immerse themselves in arts and corals. The sea has been shaping this island, as strange as it is beautiful. That struggle between the rocks and the tides is joined additionally by the presence of volcanoes. We must cross a black landscape where lava has been marking the territory. Traveling around Lanzarote is like going through a color palette. Red soil faces a green lake of black sand. The island is an impressionist painting that mixes colors and sensations. And we are yet to visit Lanzarote's most abrupt attribute. More than 25 volcanoes form the Timanfaya National Park. If you look closely at the rock, every mineral shines. Olivine, spinel, garnet. Some of them are even part of the surface of the Moon or Mars. And today, the four of us feel like astronauts walking on another planet. As far as the eye can see, the landscape shows its wounds, that sublime desolation.
Es increíble este lugar, no sé de dónde mirar con la cámara, es casi como inabarcable. Me hace pensar en los chiquitos que somos frente a la grandeza de una erupción como esta.
Many towns remain buried under the rivers of lava after the last eruption in 1824. And almost 2 centuries later, in the restaurant El Diablo, it is possible to enjoy the geothermal activity. Of course, this place was designed by César Manrique. Several times a day, the experts provoke small geysers by pouring cold water into the subsoil. The restaurant's kitchen also uses the energy of volcanoes.
Juan Vicente, esta no es una cocina cualquiera, ¿eh?
Sí, pues esto nada más que con el aire del volcán.
Sí.
La montaña todo tiene calor y por medio de aire, una grietita. Y esto estaba hecho con la lava del volcán.
¿Y este horno qué profundidad tiene?
Esto tiene 6 metros de profundidad. Seguramente que hace 50 años que lo hicieron, alrededor le fueron poniendo piedra por las orillas, porque normalmente dentro no se puede meter. Sí. Tendrá 180 o 200 grados, eso según el tiempo como anda. Queda crocante porque queda jugosito por dentro, no se quema. Y se dora, porque hay que darle vuelta después.
This is the second time on this trip that we taste a dish that has been cooked by the heat of a volcano. But this time, we're toasting with a view of the moon. We have the impression of being lost in a showcase of landscapes. Over the last few days, we have traveled Lanzarote from end to end until we reach the far north. Then, we crossed the island, traversing vineyards till we reached the sea. Later, we entered the landscapes of Timanfaya. Now, a plane takes us to Tenerife, where we are going to settle in a very special city. My city. We have settled in San Cristobal de la Laguna. Camilla and Daniel have to organize the route, but Tato and I choose to walk around the streets that saw me grow up. This is my house. Yeah. It's always harder to frame one's own home. It's difficult to be objective about the place you spent your childhood in. But the truth is, and just saying, La Laguna was declared a World Heritage Site in 1999. It's a colonial city without walls. A city of peace. And maybe that defines us somehow. But it's time to go for a ride around the island. And stop right where the sky meets the sea. As we ascend, the vegetation disappears. Here, lava has also marked its territory. Impossible rocks form the gateway to the great protagonist of the island, the Teide.
Do you see that peak over there? That is the highest point of Spain. And today, me and my team will get a little bit crazy because we decide to go up there to see the sunrise tomorrow. And to get there, how high we have to climb?
More than 4,000 feet.
More than 4,000 feet. So I think we better go on, huh?
Yeah.
Because it's for sure it's going to be dark very soon.
We're on an island not far from the African coast and the desert. But don't be fooled. Climbing to the top of Mount Teide is not a summer excursion. It's a high mountain. This peak is part of a chain of fire that links the volcanic islands from the Azores to Cape Verde.
The shadow that the Teide projects is the largest in the whole world. But for us, it's also moving so fast. And we want to get on time to the cabin where we want to sleep tonight. So we better keep going because from now on, is the hardest part of the whole trip.
The shadow of the Teide keeps getting bigger. The problem is that very soon, it will all be shadows. We are already above 3,000 meters, and temperatures drop drastically.
¿Cómo va? Estoy helado. ¿Eh?
Un poquito de frío. Sí.
¿Sentir las manos? Pero estamos llegando, ¿no, Cami?
Ya casito, ya casito.
Sí. Nuestro plan de llegar al atardecer al refugio siendo el trasteano.
Totalmente.
Bueno, pues nada, vamos a seguir, que queda poquillo, ¿eh? Vincent, venga, vamos, vamos. Vámonos.
We'll have to make one last effort under Tenerife's starry night.
Por fin, chavales, por fin. El paraíso, ¿eh?
Now we will be able to rest for 3 long hours. At 4 in the morning, we set off. The hardest part of the ascent remains, but the reward awaits at the top. And that reward comes in the form of light. Only a few of us have gotten here by foot, and we all contemplate the dawn in silence, speechless.
At the end, it was worth it. I am at 12,000 feet above the sea level in the top of the Teide, in the top of Spain, my country. And I think all the people that came here at night, we are happy because we could enjoy one of those unique moments that we won't forget in the rest of our lives.
It's a 360-degree view. The whole island is under our feet. And there it is, that shadow, that gigantic pyramid that is the Teide on the sea. Tenerife is an island that is to be explored vertically between the sky and the sea. La Laguna has marked our first steps, but we have realized that in this place there are many points of view. After our climb to the highest peak in Spain, we put our vehicles on a ferry that will take us to a tiny island that's very close by. We've changed our perspective. Now we see the stamp of Teide in the distance. We welcome the dawn on La Gomera Island. Every time we travel to a new island, we feel everything changes. To drive through its roads entails going through a rough terrain, between the mountains and the coast. The Abrante balcony is a way of overviewing La Gomera, of defying the glass vertigo. But today we want to go into the woods of the Garajanay National Park. On mornings like today's, light barely gets to the ground. And we have the illusion of going into a dream. But to explore the Lori Silva forests, it's advisable to park the cars. It's hard to believe that on other islands of the archipelago, very close by, the landscape is desert, with no trace of vegetation.
A phenomenon called horizontal rain takes place here in the center of La Gomera. It happens when trade winds drag the clouds into the trees. The leaves concentrate the water that then sink to the ground, creating a permanent humidity in the ecosystem. The result of all of that is this.
50 types of trees and more than 1,000 animal species inhabit the heart of La Gomera Island.
Vaya altura, ¿eh? Entonces, Cami, este es un bosque de cedros, ¿no?
Y en un sitio muy especial.
In the middle of the forest, only the Hermitage of Lourdes reminds us of the passing of mankind through this place. Apart from that, musk and lichens are the owners of every nook of the forest. The vegetation grows in all directions, in an explosion of life. But there are corners of this island where mankind has been able to domesticate the landscape. Ermigua Valley is a garden that extends all the way to the sea, an orchard at the foot of the town that bears its name. They say it's been blessed with the world's best weather. All year round, the temperatures oscillate between 18 and 27 degrees Celsius. These conditions favor the farming of vegetables and fruit trees. This includes the famous Canary banana, which for decades produced an economic growth throughout the whole archipelago. And in one of these gardens, we find Ernesto, a man who is determined to cultivate not only mangoes and cornfields, but also a millenary language. Today, Ernesto welcomes us to explain us how to speak without words.
Dentro de las Canarias, esta isla estaba un poco apartada de todo, ¿no? Aparte que no había carreteras, hace nada más que 100 años había caminos nada más.
O sea que la falta de comunicación ha provocado una comunicación diferente, porque aquí, bueno, pues se comunica a la gente con un idioma muy peculiar, ¿no?
Más que un idioma es un lenguaje secundario. Un lenguaje secundario que se usaba para, bueno, ya vemos todos estos valles, estas montañas, ¿no? Hay sitios que para llegar de un sitio a otro no puedes bajar por el propio barranco, sino tienes que dar toda la vuelta y puede tardar medio día. Entonces aquí se usaba el silbo.
El silbo gomero.
El silbo gomero, sí.
Que solo se silba aquí, ¿no?
Sí, bueno, en esta isla fue donde se conservó desde los antiguos gomeros hasta hoy en día, que todavía pues, se sigue usando el silbo, ¿no?
¿Y a qué distancia se puede escuchar y entender el silbo?
Bueno, pues dicen los expertos que hasta 3 kilómetros, en buenas condiciones, en silencio, con poco viento, se puede llegar hasta 3 kilómetros de distancia en comunicación.
Pero claro, el silbo tiene que darse también con unas condiciones específicas, es decir, que haya silencio, ¿no?
Claro, por supuesto. Antiguamente, imaginemos que antes no había pues, maquinaria, no había coches, entonces este valle era totalmente silencioso y cuando se escuchaba una llamada de silbo, todo el mundo estaba atento, ¿no? Todo el mundo ponía orejas, escuchaba su nombre, a ver quién era el que estaban llamando.
Ernesto lives in Agulo, a small village near Ermigua. And back in the street, we understand the advantages of the whistle.
¿Qué le he dicho?
Que me tirara las llaves para abrir la puerta, porque Se me olvidaron
A
ya.
Garoé, tu mujer que se te ha
Sí,
olvidado.
a Garoé, sí.
Hola. ¿Qué tal? Esto es mejor que un WhatsApp, que un móvil, ¿eh?
Nowadays, the Silbo Gomero is being taught in the schools of the island, and all kids understand it.
Canary, pero no lo has entendido.
Está clarísimo.
Es imposible.
These people contribute to the recovery of a pre-Hispanic language, which has been declared intangible cultural heritage of humanity.
Bueno, Ernesto, Garoé, Marina, por cierto, la próxima vez que yo venga, tú y yo vamos a tener una conversación, pero la vamos a tener silbando, ¿vale? Así que nada, yo de momento os dejo, ¿vale? Y me voy, como se dice en mi tierra, me voy silbando.
Pues... ¿Qué te parece, Marina?
They will stay here, on an extraordinary island, whistling at life. In farewells, you realize what you're leaving behind in each place. And we leave La Gomera, wishing to come back again sometime. A new ferry is waiting for us at the port to continue exploring the archipelago. We have traveled from the coast to the interior of the island, through enchanted forests and valleys, where it's always springtime. Now we go back to the sea. About 100 kilometers separate us from the island of La Palma, where we will change the ocean for a sea of clouds. If the inhabitants of La Gomera claim to have perfect weather, those of La Palma can say without a doubt that here the weather is unique. We are on a vertical island, where trade winds push the clouds, forming water vapor cascades. Santa Cruz de la Palma is the island's capital, but it has less than 20,000 inhabitants, which makes it a walkable city. It's considered one of the colonial jewels of the Canary Islands, a century-old port that recalls the stories from overseas. But what's most surprising is that here reigns the so-called sky law. In 1988, a normative was set to avoid light pollution and thus protect the stars. All over the island, public lighting shines dimly. Although there are some exceptions. Today, on the opposite end of La Palma, they intend to light up the night. On the eve of St. Michael the Archangel, the town of Tazacorte celebrates the dance of the Fufo horses. This feast reminisces the story of those who migrated to the other side of the Atlantic. The horses dance around an African giraffe and can form a troupe, like those created in the carnivals of Cuba, while the band plays Mexican corridos in a Spanish style. Perhaps people from La Palma also imported that Cuban joy, and we can't help but to join the party. Music and dance always produce this effect of jubilation, of contagious happiness. With daylight, we feel like getting away from the crowd, and actually it's pretty easy to do here if you head for the mountains. Balu is used to seeing the world from a different point of view.
El tema de aterrizaje también es muy fácil.
Vale.
Te voy a explicar en el aire, ¿ok?
¿En el aire me explicas?
Sí,
Bueno.
en el aire se puede hablar muy bien.
Ahí hablamos, ¿no?
Sin problema, ¿ok?
Una pregunta.
Bueno,
Vamos a volar a 1000 metros de altura, ¿verdad?
casi, 950 o 40 metros. Sí.
¿Y para qué es el casco?
The time has come to forget about the helmet and walk on air.
¡Qué maravilla, Balu!
In a few seconds, the land is far away. Paragliding is a pleasant sport. There are barely any scares up here, because you don't fly, you float.
¡Qué maravilla! ¿Sabes, Balu? Esta es la primera vez en mi vida que hago una entrevista en un parapente.
Pues venga.
Siempre hay una primera vez, ¿eh?
Sí, sí.
Todo lo que estamos viendo es una zona volcánica, además, ¿no?
Exacto. ¿Cómo te sientas?
Perfecto, maravilloso, tío.
Vale.
Maravilloso. Tú vives entre el cielo y el mar todos los días.
Sería guay todos los días, pero la verdad que todos los días no vuelo.
Bueno, todas las semanas, más o
Eso
menos.
sí. Pero sí, mi trabajo es una cosa chulita.
Una cosa chulita, dice.
Sí.
Es una pasada, amigo.
From up here, you can see how the greenhouses extend all the way to the shore. And that shore is where we're headed.
Vale. Vamos allá.
Otra vez. Bien.
¡Lo conseguimos, Balu! ¡Qué maravilla! ¡Qué maravilla! ¡Qué paseo! ¡Qué experiencia! ¡Qué vuelo!, ¿no? Somos dos pájaros aterrizando, felices. Y en fin, ya hemos visto La Palma desde el aire.
We've heard about a mysterious place, a hidden town between the cliffs. There are no signs that show its name, nor does it appear in the main touristic guides. And yet, just trying to get there is worth it. Suddenly, it appears between the rocks. A stronghold of fishermen, a town that's hidden in a cliff.
Tato, my friend, come out to this side of the camera. ¿Qué te parece este lugar?
Pues un sitio único, Dani. Impresionante.
¿Cómo se llama? ¿Cómo se llama este pueblo?
Se llama Porís de Candelaria.
Porís de Candelaria. A real strange and beautiful place here between the sea and the rocks. Let's go to enjoy. There is nobody around. Have you seen that?
No, no hay nadie.
No hay nadie, ¿no?
Ni para tomarse una caña.
Bueno, pero daremos una vuelta, hombre.
We see no one here. No fishermen, no locals, or visitors. Some of these houses were built 80 years ago. Today it has become a summer retreat. A place for leisure, for fishing with no hurry, and for getting away on an island which is in itself already remote. We'd never heard of this place. And yet, here we are, each of us trying to find a moment of peace. Although in a deserted town, it's kind of hard to relate.
Está cerrado, Tato.
And well, I think we're done shooting for today. There are times when it's better to turn off the camera and forget about everything. The adventure only makes sense if you get to escape from time to time. And this is a perfect place for that. We've spent several days in La Palma, experiencing the island day and night, above the clouds or submerged in the party. Since we arrived in La Palma, we've traveled from one coast to another, always accompanied by the sea, used to a road that winds through the mountains or the cliffs. Now we will head inland to reach the highest peak of the island, and perhaps the most emblematic. There is a place without which it's impossible to understand what La Palma means to the world, or even more, to the universe. And it's not an exaggeration. At 2,400 meters above sea level, at the Roque de los Muchachos, construction began more than 30 years ago for an astrophysical observatory in which 19 countries are collaborating. Antonio Cabrera, the chief of operations, is waiting for us in the core of the great telescope of the Canaries. We observe him with the same curiosity with which he observes outer space.
Estamos a punto de entrar en el corazón del gran telescopio Canarias, ¿no?
Sí, vas a conocer el mayor telescopio óptico del mundo.
El mayor del mundo.
Sí, sí. Y vamos a poner el casco porque en este telescopio no se para ni 24 horas al día y ahora mismo seguramente hay gente trabajando en la cúpula.
We are entering one of the temples of science. To give some data, it has a height of 45 meters and a primary mirror of 10.4 meters in diameter. The metallic dome consists of 59,000 pieces.
Antonio, aquí uno se siente un poco sobrecogido, ¿no? Estamos bajo 400 toneladas de telescopio.
Sí, que se deben nada más mover con muchísima precisión. Tenemos una precisión de posicionado de 1 milímetro.
Tú eres el director de operaciones científicas.
Sí.
¿Qué se ve con un telescopio así?
Puedes ver prácticamente los orígenes del universo. Lo que pasa
Nada menos.
Sí, la necesidad de tener telescopios grandes como Gran Tecán radica en la capacidad de alcanzar objetos cada vez más lejanos y por tanto más cerca del origen del universo. En la astrofísica, ver lejos es ver atrás en el tiempo. Entonces, un telescopio que te permite observar objetos muy lejanos está permitiéndote ver muy atrás en el tiempo.
¿Hay alguna manera de, a través de este telescopio, alguno parecido, de detectar, no sé, síntomas de vida fuera de nuestro planeta?
Seguramente la generación de 30 a 40 metros de telescopios o los telescopios espaciales como el James Webb serán los primeros en detectar trazas de vida o lo que nosotros consideramos los componentes de la vida, agua, metano, gases, en otro planeta fuera del sistema solar, seguro. Y de aquí a 20 años, seguro.
¿Y tú estás convencido de que tiene que haber vida, por estadística?
Por estadística pura y dura debe haberlo. Aunque solo una estrella de cada miles de millones de estrellas tuviera un planeta con vida, hay miles de millones de galaxias con miles de millones de estrellas. Luego la probabilidad te sale un número enorme.
Tú eres canario, Antonio, y precisamente aquí en tu tierra es donde se ha invertido para poder levantar una obra de esta envergadura. ¿Por qué aquí en La Palma?
Porque La Palma tiene unas condiciones de cielo excepcionales para la astronomía. Sí, estamos hablando de una altura ideal para poder tener las nubes por debajo del observatorio y encima una calidad de cielo que hace que digamos, la nitidez de nuestras imágenes sea imbatible.
Ser astrónomo al final es también ser un poco filósofo, ¿no?
Sí.
¿Es incompatible estudiar la teoría del universo con la religión o no?
Hombre, al final, como siempre se ha dicho, el Big Bang es el origen del universo, lo tenemos claro, pero el por qué es la respuesta que siempre queda por contestar.
At Roque de los Muchachos Observatory, there's a total of 15 telescopes, and we're going to stop by the ones called Magic. Those who know how to interpret telescopes are capable of reading the sheet music of the universe. And today, we meet one of those privileged people.
Víctor Achari, tú eres uno de los responsables del mantenimiento de estos dos gigantes, dos telescopios, el Magic 2 y el Magic 1, que es el que tenemos justo detrás.
Correcto.
¿Qué diferencia estos telescopios de un telescopio óptico?
Mira, la diferencia fundamental es que estos telescopios Cherenkov no miran la luz que viene directamente desde surgentes como estrellas o galaxias, pero mira el efecto que hay en la atmósfera creando esta luz Cherenkov producida por rayos gamma que golpean la parte superior de la atmósfera más o menos a unos 12 kilómetros de altitud.
Tú sabes que cuando hablas de rayos gamma, hablas de agujeros negros, pues uno piensa que estás hablando de ciencia ficción, ¿no? Pero esto es real, ¿no?
Claro.
Todo eso existe. Y dime una cosa, ¿qué cosas sabes que no sepamos nosotros? Dínoslo ahora que no nos oye nadie. Algo tienes que haber detectado que digas, uy, no sabes lo que hay ahí fuera.
No, bueno, mira, hay muchas cosas que son misterio. Actualmente estos telescopios están también relacionados con lo que es tratar de explicar lo que es la materia oscura. Es un misterio que es uno de los más grandes en la ciencia, en la astrofísica, y estos telescopios podrían un día detectar un exceso de materia oscura que existe una hipotética partícula llamada neutralino que se aniquila y produce rayos gamma. Entonces eso explicaría a lo mejor una parte de esta materia oscura.
These telescopes are the eyes of the world, and they guard the nights of La Palma. The Canaries are known as the Fortunate Islands. And now, we know why. The magic is everywhere, on the bottom of the sea, at ground level or up there, in the stars. Those same stars that soon will light our steps through Africa.